Hi guys, it's just Jen. Hi. Welcome back to my channel. So, what you're watching is not a music reaction. It is my addiction special, the series part 2. So, where we left off was my progression of drug abuse. Today I think I want to get into where it led me. What was my losses? The consequences of addiction are so vast, and I believe that when somebody's in active addiction, they don't see the consequences in front of them. I don't think that anything else matters but that next fix so they don't get sick. Whether it be alcohol, drugs, shopping, gambling, sex, pornography, anything. An addiction is an addiction is an addiction. And we cannot seriously just say one day, hey, I'm that's it, I'm not an addict. No, it takes work. It takes work. You have to change your mind. So I left off, and I shared with you guys when it all started with alcohol when I was really young, sipping my grandfather's beer. It's kind of, I'll do like a little recap here. And then it progressed from there to alcohol, marijuana, hallucinogenics, ecstasy, cocaine, methamphetamines, pills, heroin. And I didn't tell you guys this before because I forgot, but when I was using heroin, I was prescribed benzodiazepine, and that is in the family of Valium, Klonopin, Xanax, and I was prescribed Klonopins, 2 milligram Klonopins, 90 of them a month, 3 a day. And along with my heroin, I would take 7 or 5 or 6, whatever I could. 6 or 7 was my lucky number, right? As soon as I got that bottle filled, I was taking 6 or 7 of them, putting them in my mouth and chewing them up. And it wasn't like most pills, right? It was like this minty taste, and it didn't bother me. The chalkiness didn't bother me. There was no like medicine taste to it. So then I would shoot heroin. And if you guys know anything about opiates mixed with benzodiazepines, that is a lethal cocktail. And I can't even tell you how many times I've overdosed and woke up hours later. It was so sad. So this installment is going to tell you guys how I knocked on death's door, what had happened, the really dark, seedy parts of addiction, and what they don't teach you in schools, right? So I can remember being, I think, about 3 months into my addiction, and I left my son at my mom's house, and I went to the apartment that I had because my house burned down because I hung out with people, bad people. I surrounded myself with nothing but losers. Because a heroin addict, junkie, is not going to hang out with good, upstanding citizens. I'm going to tell you that right now. That's why they say people, places, and things. You have to get rid of those kinds of people. If you get sober, don't be calling your using friends because you're going to pick back up. They want you sick, just like them, because like a woman, being a woman, I have means to get more money than they do. Then I don't have to go out and steal. So what kind of consequences did I have? Oh, well, besides the fact that my dignity was gone, I didn't care about sleeping with men for money and taking their money so I can go get high. Never in my life did I imagine that I would be doing that, by the way. But that's how low drug addiction took me. I didn't even care. It was like, whatever. Now I look back at it and I'm like, ooh, I did that? I sure did. So the house that burned down, I stayed in an apartment. I went back to that apartment. I dropped my son off. I said, Mom, I have to go let my dogs out. I'll be right back. In fact, I was going to go get high. And I wasn't even sick, so I don't even know why. I had a bunch of money from insurance company from the house burning down. And so I had a bunch of heroin. Remember I was telling you guys back then, like the heroin, there was a time where I had a lot of money, and everybody wanted to be my friend, by the way. Everybody wanted to be my friend because I had all this money. Thousands and thousands. I walked around with $10,000 in my pocket. Boy, did that go fast. when I started using, that went fast. So I went to the apartment and I went into the bathroom because I had a 2-bedroom apartment, really spacious, beautiful, that my insurance company put me up, right? And so I went into my master bedroom, had a bathroom on it with a beautiful stand-up shower. It was just such a pretty place. And I sat down on the toilet and I injected heroin. Well, all the lights just went out. The lights just went out and I faded out. And I woke up 45 minutes later and my head was down on the bathroom counter from the toilet. I must have, fell forward and I had this big crease in my forehead and I'm going, what just happened? I experienced my first ever overdose, but I came out of it, thankfully. A couple of times I had a couple of instances where I didn't come out of it on my own. I had intervention, divine intervention, Narcan to be exact. And another consequence, I had lost that home, by the way. All of that, the bull crap that I went through, I lost that house. My grandfather died and left me a nice chunk of change, and I put it down on that house and I lost it. I had that house for about 8 years. And I just couldn't make those mortgage payments. The dope was that powerful that I stopped making the mortgage payments. My electricity was getting cut off. I had somebody staying at my house, and he would cut the electricity back on, and then they put a big lockbox on. It was like a ring, a big metal ring, so we couldn't do that anymore. I even had somebody put the electric meter on backwards, so it would take electricity off, and instead of the meter going forward, it would go backwards. So my electric bill turned to be maybe $3, because we'd switch it back and forth, And so my utilities were all shut off. I could recall them coming to the house to shut off my utilities. And I had a son here. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, I had no business having my son around me. I would drop him off at my parents' house or his other grandparents' house to go score drugs. But there were a few times where I did take him with me. He was too young to remember, though. Only did I come home from prison. He was like, Mom, when you leave me, I never thought you were coming back for me. I'm like, Matthew, I would always come back for you. You know that. And he says, no, Mom, I thought you were going to die. He knew what I was doing. By the time he was 8 years old, he was about 3 years old when I started using heroin. And when he was about 7 or 8, my parents let it be known that your mother's a heroin addict. And I know now today that I was so mad at them for this. I'm like, she would find needles, and your mother has needles again. And I was so mad at my mom for saying this around my son, but I think she did it to prepare him in case I didn't make it. And as you know, so many heroin addicts don't make it. And in fact, I'm going to throw a little statistic out here. Only 3% of heroin addicts get off and stay clean. 3. So put 100 people in a line, knock down 97. Those ones aren't going to make it. Those ones are not going to achieve lifetime of sobriety, long-term sobriety. 3 people left standing, they will. So I was so mad at my parents for doing that. Like, why would you tell him? But now I look at it much differently than I looked at things back then. I could recall, this is about the consequences of things that I lost using drugs, right? My family's trust. That was a main thing. My dignity with the sleeping with men for money, the home that my grandfather had to die for me to buy, gone. My family's trust, absolutely gone. And I touched on this a little bit, and I told you guys I stole my mom's jewelry. That was a big consequence. My poor mother, I would pawn her jewelry just thinking that next month when I get a disability check, I could pay that back, and she'll never know. My mother is very meticulous, like I said before. She knew every time. And no matter where she hid it, I'd find her jewelry. And that was a main source of me getting high, was stealing from my mother money, and I can con anybody out of money, right? It was really sad. It's really remarkably sad what I used to do, and that's why today I pride myself in being honest and forthcoming and telling you guys what I struggled with. So I lost that home, and my family's trust was gone. My brother had went to prison, and I remember visiting him with my sister. It was an hour away. Her two kids are in the back seat, and I brought my son too. So there's 3 kids in the back seat, and here I am on the way shooting up heroin. And we get into the visitation room, and I'm nodding out. And I can tell the addicts were all looking at me. All of the COs were looking at me. They brought the drug dogs in. And fortunately, I had got rid of all of the drugs and the paraphernalia I threw out the window. And luckily I did that because in prisons, they actually run dogs through cars and around cars to make sure that no one's bringing drugs into the facility. And my poor brother was like thoroughly searched because they were convinced I was bringing dope in, and I never did. I wasn't that stupid. So I would get high no matter where I was going or who was around me, But I would go to the bathroom and inject dope away from my son. I never once injected directly in front of him. And that's not excusing my behavior, but that's what I did. I had no shame whatsoever. So the first time, now we're going to get into a big one, a big consequence that I lost, right? So I started using heroin in 2006. By 2007, I achieved greatness. My first felony. Now, I would rather have an F on a term paper or in grades, but the F behind my name now, felon. I'm a felon. So I got caught with drugs, with a $20 bag of drugs with a friend of mine. He was my co-defendant, and he and I were given probation. Okay, I messed that up. Obviously, I messed it up. Like, I honestly think that the justice system needs to be reformed. I was never given the opportunity to go to drug court. Never given the opportunity to go to rehab. They're just like, throw her on probation. Let's see if she'll pass some drug test. Excuse me, no. No drug addict is going to pass a drug test if you put them on probation. So what happens when you violate probation? You go to jail. So then you go and you sit for 2 weeks in jail. You go through extreme withdrawals in the jail. And then finally, on your 3rd day, they evaluate you and they're like, oh yeah, you're going through opiate withdrawal. Would you like some protocol, some medication? Yes, please. So they would give us a concoction of medication that would kind of inhibit those symptoms a little bit, but you're still going through it really bad. Depending on how hard how big your habit is, you're gonna be going through it really, really bad. So I'm detoxing in jail, and oh my God, it was so terrible because I was on a bunk. And when you're going through it, you're flip-flopping, right? I got arrested with my friend. They said I ran a stop sign. The Vice pulled us over. It was undercover police. And they threw me in the 4th District of Cleveland jail on a street called 93rd and Kinsman. And this is a bad neighborhood. So I sat in that jail for a whole week. And the women in there, they brought in women, and there was this prostitute that they brought in. And this was before I started sleeping with men for money. And so, okay, I was hoity-toity, like, I'm from the suburbs. This girl she's a prostitute. She stunk, though. She had some kind of bacterial infection, and it was very bad. It was gross. So a whole week I was in that jail before we rode out to court. So I'm sweating. I'm in the same clothing. I'm begging them for new clothing. No, you're going to shower every other day and put your same dirty outfit on. I'm sorry, but people in jail, especially here, I can't say about everywhere, but I'm pretty sure that they're all treated like animals when they're human beings. And I'm sitting in this jail waiting for a whole week to go to court. Finally, I'm through the withdrawal and bebopping around, but I stink to high hell, right? And we all pack in a bus. We're shackled and handcuffed together like sardines, and we ride off to the Justice Center. And that's when they give me probation. And I of course, messed it up right away. I didn't show up, or, I'm just thinking, well, I can beat this system. And eventually I did. I was charged with tampering with evidence when I went to do a urine test, and it was, I dumped the rest in the toilet. I didn't get any in the cup, so I filled up with my own urine and got rid of the evidence. And when it come down time to court again, they were like, you're being charged with tampering with it. My probation officer charged me immediately with tampering. And since they didn't find anything on me, and I said, Your Honor, if you could please look at the test results. Didn't it test positive for the same thing I tested positive for last time? Because I had to pee in that cup. I had to give him something. My ass was so nervous, I squeezed it into the damn toilet. So he was like, you know what, you're right. I'm going to reinstate your probation. And I'm like, wait. And we were about to leave. And I was like, can I please get a new probation officer? Because she hates me and she wanted to send me to prison. He was like, no. And that judge was amazing. He cared, but I really wish they would have put me in drug treatment or the drug court. They didn't. So of course I was cycled into the justice system, and it was a non-going thing, a non-going battle. And now, if I show you guys something, this right here are all of my arrest records from one city. I'm not going to show you all of the arrests and what are they, what have you. There's a couple of DUIs in there, and I'm going to show you some mugshots of what I look like, and it's not pretty. It's really not pretty. So I get a new probation officer, and he was a kind soul. And I have to tell you guys that before this, I did try to go to treatment, but this was forced treatment. My family wanted me to go. My probation officer in the city that I just showed you those papers, she wanted me to go. So of course I went. I went for them. It wasn't for me. So guess what wasn't successful? You got it. My treatments were never successful. In fact, 31 times I tried drug rehabilitation. It never worked. Never once did it work. So I go to treatment, and I only do this because I was supposed to show up to the probation officer, and he knew. He was like, oh, so you're in treatment to avoid going to jail. And I was like, no, I'm doing the program here. Please give me a chance. And he did. And I completed that residential treatment there. But then after that, I've completed the probation, but after that I relapsed. And so it was another year and a half, and I caught another one. And this one, it was lack of evidence, and they hit me with attempted possession. And the judge was like, I got picked up on a warrant because I didn't go to court, of course. And then it was Thanksgiving, and he's like, hey, it's Thanksgiving, time served. See you later. I'm going to vacate your fines. I'm in a giving mood. I was like, thank you. But I still suffered with that addiction. Let's fast forward a little bit to 2013, September to be exact. Now, I'm involved in picking up a lot of drugs, because I'm telling you, when you're so far in, you need more and more and more. You have that tolerance that's built up, and you need more and more and more. So I was buying a big amount at once, and a drug dealer who had been to prison, I had known him before he went to prison. He had gotten out of prison and got right back into the drug game. And so I started buying off of him again. Well, he was tapped by the federal government, and he had a GPS monitor on his car. So his phone was tapped, and the GPS locator was on his car. He delivered me drugs 5 times, they counted, which it was more than that. And he gave me a certain amount. It was over a gram, so it became to be felony of the 4th degree. And I only had felony of the 5th degree, so I was like, oh, great. That is up to 36 months or up to 18 months in prison on each, and I had 5 of them. So we're all sitting there, and we all had this big roundup, right? September 18th of 2013, September 18th. And I was at my parents' house, and my poor stepfather sitting outside on the porch smoking a cigarette. And all I hear is my dog bark and my Rottweiler. And my dad's like, Jen, you need to come out here now. And the whole sidewalk was lined with cops with machine guns and dogs. There were 6 different agencies. The federal government was there, the DEA, the U.S. Marshals, and it was pretty scary, to say the least. And they hauled me off to jail. And only then did I learn that I was a part of a big drug sweep called Operation Clean Sweep. I'm going to show you some mugshots, you guys. This is not pretty. But you know what? I show this today because of how far I've come, right? And I did a live stream, and somebody thanked me for helping keeping them sober. And I do this because I'm sharing a message of hope. If somebody as low life as me, a junkie like I was, can switch their life around, anybody can, and that is why I do this. That is right here, right now, why I am doing this for you guys, and for me too. It keeps me sober. This is a doozy. Let's see. We're gonna go in chronological order. 2014. Well, we're not gonna go in order apparently. That was 2014. 2011. Ew. This is just one city, mind you, you guys. This is me 1 year into my addiction. This was 2007. This was 11/29. This was 3/17/2007. Look how disgusting I am. And then 11/29/2007. I wish I would have put these in order, but 2012. This was October 17th, 2012. I'm a crybaby, apparently. This was October 23rd, 2013. Right here. This right here is what I walked around like. If you could tell, like, my skin, even today, has color in it. Like, you don't have any color when you're using drugs. You look very bad. And I thought I looked good, believe it or not. I thought I looked absolutely amazing. No, I didn't. I looked like death. So I got that big roundup, right? And all of us go to jail, and we learn that we have 93 people total on that indictment. 30 of them were charged with federal crimes of drug dealers, and they were a part of a gang here in Cleveland called the Heartless Felons. And then 63 of us were charged by the state of Ohio. That was me. 5 felony of the 4th degree drug possession charges, and my drug dealer is the one who testified against me, by the way, to shave off some time off of his sentence. And not only that, but I got the most ruthless judge in Cuyahoga County. And so we go, and I'm in jail for a couple days, and then we get arraigned, and our bond is set. My bond was set at $2,500. My parents bonded me out, of course. And when you're out on bond, you have to go back for a preliminary hearing. That's where you plead guilty or not guilty, or the arraignment first. I'm sorry. You're arraigned, and they're going to tell you who your judge is. You plead guilty or not guilty right then and there, right? So I'm like, not guilty. I need a lawyer. And this is hard. So I plead not guilty, and then they give me the judge, and I'm like, oh no, she's got a reputation for being the strictest judge in Cleveland, and I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to get out of this one, you know. So they give me this judge, and she puts me on probation. And what did I say before? You don't put a drug addict on probation because they're not gonna get clean that way. They're free to roam the streets. So, of course, what did I do? I violated probation by having a dirty urine, and then I didn't go. They put a warrant out for my arrest. Actually, I was given a drug. What had actually happened was she had given me the papers to get the drug test, and I walked out the building, out the Justice Center, and there's another building where you go to get your drug screening done. And I walked towards that building, and then I beelined it and got in the car that was waiting for me. I'm like, let's just go. I'm not going to pass this test. So they put a warrant out for my arrest. Well, of course, they came and got me. So I go to jail again, and I'm going through detox in jail, And when I got rounded up with all those people, and there were black women, white women, Hispanic women, all of these men as well, old, young, fat, skinny. Drug addiction doesn't have a face. It doesn't care. It doesn't care who you are. It has no discrimination when it comes to affecting anybody. I think a lot of people with traumatic past, a lot of people do turn to drugs. And I think watching all of these girls sick, like the jail was packed, and they rounded all of us up. Only I think they didn't catch 3 people, but those people are now deceased. A couple of my co-defendants are deceased as well. So they round all of us up, and I'm watching these women get sick. We're all throwing up. It was a mess. But so I evaded my probation officer, and I go to jail on that warrant, the KPS that they put out for me. And then I'm in jail, but this time I'm in jail for months. I got almost 3 months into jail, and I finally, she put me to treatment to a place called CATS. It's Community Action Treatment Center, or whatever it was, but it was in a not so good area, and their success rate was like 1%. It was really pathetic. It was pathetically ran. It was just it was terrible. It was not. There was bed bugs and stuff. There was an outbreak. A lot of women there had lice. It was like, all right then. If that wasn't enough to stop me from using drugs. But so I completed. They said I had to go to the treatment center for the longest term possible, and that was 64 days. 64 days. So I complete 2 months, a little over 2 months at this treatment facility, and I got the 3 months in jail. So I'm clean about 5 months. Well, everything's all good, and my mom's proud, and my son Matt is happy to have me home. And of course, at this treatment center, they can come visit you and stuff like that. And I kind of stayed to myself, even though I had a couple girlfriends there that I really clicked with. But I kind of just stayed by myself, and you were allowed to go out and look for jobs and whatnot. And I passed all my drug testing and all of that. Seen a couple people die. It was pretty crazy. It's pretty intense. So I get home, and about a week goes by, and I go to an AA meeting with my friend, and I see the guy that I first was introduced to heroin with. Seen him there, and he was faded out. He was like, and his pupils were really pinpoint. And that's how you could tell somebody's on opiates, by the way, because their pupils are like pins. And I seen him, and like that, I'm like, I want to get high. And he's like, no, Jen, no, you're doing so well. And I'm like, and I browbeat him, and I bothered him. I'm like, give me a number, dude, give me a number, because I didn't have any drug dealers. I erased all of my drug dealers out of my phone. So he gave me that phone number, right? And I bought drugs, and long story short, it was the fentanyl dope, right? And so I only did a teeny tiny bit. There's that common misconception. Well, addicts use the same amount that they thought they were using before, and that's why they overdose. No, not necessarily true. I did a tiny bit, and I was used to filling up a syringe to the top. Like, there's 100 units on a 1cc syringe, and I would push the limit above the 100 mark, so I could see how much dope I could put in there. It was about that big. There's actually a couple instances in here of that paperwork of where they found me. I overdosed before, and they had to. I wasn't breathing, and if I can find it, I'll read it to you guys. But it was very scary, and here's a warrant. This is a warrant that I was picked up on. So, dangerous drugs warrant. This was it. That's when I was picked up on. That was when I was picked up on the warrant. But so I they found me not breathing, and they administered Narcan to me. And then, this was a couple years before I actually went to prison and got clean. I think it was roughly about a year. I'm not sure. I'd have to dig through them papers and what have you. But, so the last use was November 1st of 2014, right? And I went to jail. I can't even tell you how many times. There was 47 arrests just in one city from 2006 to 2014. This is all of my arrests right here. And that's one city, you guys. One city. And I was on probation in another county. So I can't even tell you how many times I've been to Cuyahoga County Jail. I was in another county. But 11-1, all the failed detoxes, the failed probation violation, everything. November 1st, I get a hold of that dope, right? And I got a half of a gram of heroin. And I did a tiny, tiny bit. And I did shoot up. And the only place I could find a vein was in my chest here. Underneath my skin, I found a vein in my breast. And I injected that heroin. And I remember going upstairs, letting the dogs out, and then lights out. And before that, I called my mom. Before I shot up, I called my mom, and I was at her house for some odd reason. I don't even know why I was at her house, but thank God I was. So I called my mom, and I said, hey, I'm going to hang out with Mikey here. Take your time, Mom, And I shot up. I let the dogs out. I fall out completely. Mikey leaves. And my mom gets home, finds me not breathing on the floor. Thank God she came home. She knew something was going on. So they left my stepsister's house and came home, my mom and my stepfather, and they found me there and called 911 hysterically. And they came and they administered Narcan again, intravenously this time. And I woke up and I was on the couch, and I read the police report and I shook my head. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. But I was sitting there with the paramedics, and I looked at them, and I said, wow, you found a vein there? I said, and the first thing I said was, that was what was going on in my mind. Wow, they actually found a vein, a central vein in the crook of my arm, my left arm. They were at, and I looked at them, and the first words out of my mouth was, fuck, it seemed like a great idea at the time. And that's in my police report. I just read that the other day, and I'm going, oh my God, I cannot believe this. I cannot believe I said that, and I actually did say that. So November 1st, 2014, that was my last use. When I got into that ambulance, let me tell you, I knew. I'm like, I think I might be a little bit screwed here. I think I might go to jail. I think I'm going to go to jail. So I go to the hospital, and I'm like, all right, I want to leave. So they're like, well, you know what? You could re-overdose if the Narcan wears off, so we might want to look at you and keep you. And I'm like, no, dude, I just want to go, because I knew I was going to get in trouble. And I'm like, I'm not going to get arrested at this hospital. Well, I didn't get arrested that night. That night, my mom took me to a late AA meeting, or NA. It was an NA meeting. And it was across the street from the hospital. And my mom went with me, and we had told everybody what had happened. And the Narcan wore off in the meeting, and I was started to fade out again. And my poor mother, she had been through AA meetings with me. She'd even go with me. She was like my cheerleader, but she was my chief enabler, for real. She never would call the police on me. Well, little did I know that my dad had made a phone call to my probation officer, my stepdad, and he told her what had happened. So she put a warrant out for my arrest. And 6 days later, and before the 6 days had happened, I had signed up for intensive outpatient because I knew I messed up. And I'm like, man, maybe if I can get intensive outpatient and if I can get in, like, my judge will forgive me. You have the strictest judge in Cuyahoga County, girlfriend. She's not going to forgive you. So I go to my first ever IOP, and this is the 7th of November. Well, we go out for a cigarette break, and 6 cars pull, or no, it was 3. I'm sorry. 3 unmarked cars and I think 2 other sheriffs. So it was 5 total. They pull up and I'm going, oh my God. I seen the sheriff's cars. I'm going, oh my God. They came like in a line and they pulled in, and my stepfather, they came to my mom's house for me. And first they went to the condo that I had, and then they went to my parents' house. And my stepfather, they brought German Shepherds and everything, and my dad was shit scared, you know. So he told them where I was. And they pulled in, and I started taking my jewelry off because I had a nice gold chain my mom got me for completing my treatment in the CATS center. And I started taking off my jewelry, my phone, and my cigarettes, and I handed them over to David. He was the coordinator of IOP, and I said, here you go, man. Give this to my mom. These guys are here for me. And he goes, how do you know? No. And I'm like, dude, they're here for me. Just take my stuff, please. Take it. Well, they held up a picture of me, and they looked down at it, and then they looked at me, and I'm going, that's me. And so I was like, yeah, let's just go, you know. And I was arrested and sent to the Cuyahoga County Jail, and I awaited court. 2 weeks I awaited court, right? And in between in between all of this mess, right, throughout the years, I was arrested so many times I can't even tell you. But the way that I was with the police, I was the biggest thorn in their sides. In some of these arrest records, you should see the way I was combative, the way I talked disrespectfully to them, the countless of bullcrap reasons I was arrested. It was ridiculous. And I use this today to say, you know what? Nothing is worth that again. And once you get into that web of the justice system, it is so hard to get out of it. And still today, I suffer, and I have felonies behind my name and court fines that I have to pay in order to get those felonies expunged. Almost 7 years later, well, over 7 years later, now I'm still having to pay these court fines off. I don't even know how I'm going to do it, but whatever. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. So they take me to jail, and I'm waiting to go to court. And finally, my name is called to go to court. And she looks pissed. And my mom's there, or my stepdad's there, because my mom had to work. And she was like, you know what? And I said, Your Honor, look, man, I made a big mistake. I'm very remorseful. And I gave her the spiel that everyone one gives when they're in front of a judge. I'm sorry. I'll never do this again. I'm really remorseful. Please give me another chance. Blah, blah, blah. The guy that went up before me actually had fines, and she threw him in prison for 18 months because he missed out on the supervision fee. And if that was a precursor of what was to come, I was like so blinded and so stupid that I thought I was going to get away with this. Well, they sent him to prison. She sent him to prison. So it was my turn. And of course I gave her the spiel, and I'm so sorry. Give me one more chance. She goes, you are not dying on my docket. Therefore, I'm going to amend counts 1, 2, and 3, and I'm going to null the other 2. I'm going to drop the other 2, and I'm going to give you 18 months on each of the 3 felonies, but I'm going to run them consecutively, meaning you're going to do 36 months in prison. I could have gave you 54, and I'm going, wait, I'm going to prison for 36 months for drug possession? And she goes, you're not dying on my docket. And she slammed that gavel down. I was like, and I was hauled off to prison, you know, and it was quite possibly, the shock didn't even hit me when they arrested me, or they took me back to the jail through the tunnel system, right? It didn't even hit me until I hit that pod and went into my cell. And then I was like, oh my God. She just gave me 3 years for drug possession. And November 14th, I arrived at the Ohio Reformatory for Women. So, this episode was about what I did, the consequences, what I lost. And subsequently, I went to prison for 3 years. I think on my next installment, what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe to you guys what women's prison is like. I think you guys think that It's like Orange is the New Black. Nothing like that. Although, and I put a community post out like this, Piper Kerman, who wrote Orange is the New Black, she was a visitor often at our institution because she led a writing group for the ladies in the good honor dorms, right? You got to, it was called the Tapestry Unit, and that is where you're in live in a very cushy, like a pod or a dorm, and you get 2-man cells instead of you're in a big massive bay and stuff like that. But it's cushy compared to the general population. So I think on my next installment, I'll get into what women's prison is really like. So you guys, those are my consequences of what happened, of what I've lost. My dignity was sleeping with men for money, my trust that my family had, my home, my freedom. I only hung out with losers. I didn't have any good, friends that were but one, and I'll love her forever. And that's Larissa Lacey. She stuck by me through this whole thing. And I'll tell you guys what prison was all about. But those were all the consequences that I could have lost my life, and in fact, a couple friends did lose their lives. So next time, I'm going to tell you all about my stay at the Ohio Reformatory for Women. And it's not all sunshines and rainbows and lesbians and what have you. Although there is a lot of lesbian activity there. Nothing like you see on television, believe me. The stuff that I've seen and the criminals that I was housed with, yeah, kind of scorches my ass still that I was in prison for 3 years. But it saved my life. All right, you guys. That does it for me. I am Just Jen. This is part 2 of my recovery series, my addiction story, part 2. Stay tuned for part 3 where Jen goes to prison. It's not fun. It's not fun. And I do have pictures of my intake picture, or my the picture of me when I'm leaving, the happiness you can see on my face, like I'm finally getting out of this place. All right, you guys, take care of yourselves. And feel free to hit me up on justjenreacts on Facebook or on Instagram if you are suffering with an addiction. If you also have a story, I'd love to hear it. If you have a success story, please hit me up, and maybe I can get you on a podcast. Maybe we can start a podcast. I don't know. I got all kinds of brilliant ideas. All right, you guys. That does it for me. Hope you enjoyed it. See you guys.